Would love to know about your decision to join Swiggy.
I was in my early 40s and I thought we are changing, the world is changing, people are starting to use Swiggy, Uber. I said, मेरे को जाना है. I always want to be relevant, and if I am relevant, I'll be successful.
If you look 5 years back to now, what has changed?
If you talk about delivery, 5 years back, you will not imagine ordering tea and coffee on delivery because you'll think it'll come cold. Today, nobody thinks. You'll order your favorite coffee, tea, aram se, it'll come in a flask. It is hot, you drink it.
Are you finding your consumers also asking for that 10-minute delivery? Sometimes they might have to compromise on freshness. I don't know if it is true or not.
Quick delivery doesn't happen at the cost of freshness. So it operates on 2 or 3 very simple principles. One is there is a bunch of SKUs which are ready. I'm not changing fundamentally the way it is cooked. Technically, actually it is fresher because it's not waiting anywhere in a supply chain at all.
If you are a third-party person standing from outside, what do you think the main reason why, other than these two companies, nobody has been able to scale? Is it the network effect of the part of the model? Or is it execution?
I think
people say that, it's really foolish to become a founder. It's even more foolish when you leave a perfect standard corporate job to join a startup. Today we have with us Rohit Kapoor. He was executive director at Max Healthcare. Amazing, I'm sure, a career, well placed. And then in 2018, decided to join Oyo.
that's correct.
Still a young company, and then led multiple businesses out there. And then 3 years back, joined Swiggy as the CEO of the food marketplace of Swiggy. So thank you, Rohit, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Joel, for having me here.
Yeah. And maybe to start with, Rohit, would love to know about your decision to join Swiggy. Like, give us a context of how large was the company, what was the role, how did you, start by handling that role, and how's the journey been?
So, Rahul, actually, when maybe it's a continuum from 18 actually, when I was leaving Max Healthcare, I had a choice to go on and lead a listed healthcare company that time, right, which had come looking for a CEO. But I thought like something is happening in the ecosystem. I was in my early 40s and I thought we are changing, the world is changing, people are starting to use Swiggy, Uber, everything. Urban company that time had just started to sort of push up a little bit. And I thought, okay, I always want to be relevant. My simple job in life is to keep myself relevant. I have no other ambition, right?
Yeah.
And if I am relevant, I'll be successful, right? So I said, मेरे को जाना है. I have to try the consumer tech space, and I'm also a very consumer. I like B2C. I can handle a lot of B2B, but my preference is B2C businesses. And there, I had a simple filter saying which companies have a track record of absorbing talent from more established so-called either consulting outfits or what is called the old world economy in a way, and doing something decent with them. And the track record of the startup world is not that great.
Retaining that talent.
Hiring to asan hai, hiring to, you can give good stocks and good money and good position and exciting story, a lot of people come, but retention is no, the track record wasn't that great. And I made a shortlist only on that basis, saying consumer business, good founder, good track record, right? And interestingly, I had come up with 3-4 names. That is the only filter, right? And economy is growing, so every company has a reasonable shot of success, right? And Oyo was in the list, and Swiggy instantly was also on the list. But I didn't know anybody Swiggy, and Oyo happened because Maninder, who was ex-McKinsey, reached out to me. He was at Light, the guy who from Lightspeed who had gone there. And then I met and I joined Oyo like that, right? And then when the natural point on came when I thought my OS stint was done, a certain whatever she was done, I was looking out, and Swiggy approached me. It was just Providence, right? That Swiggy approached me and said, this was on my list like 4 years back. Right? So I joined at a place where Swiggy is fairly mature in this. The food business was in its 7th year almost. Instamart was new at that time. Dynot was just acquired from Times, like literally that period. So I'll say it is a company which had spent 7 years building a fantastic brand, a great network. So it was there. Things were around me, but it needed a lot of bringing it together. And obviously, we had a competitor which had turned profitable, right? And it was listed, so there was enough coverage in the market. I think the first job was for me, I think everything starts with only one thing, is build a team, right? And today also my core job is only that, like being obsessed about finding the right people in the right slot, and then creating the environment for them to succeed. And that's what I exactly did. I think that playbook is very boring playbook. Very
It's boring or hard.
I've been doing it for multiple times. I have so much faith in it that I don't look for new playbooks. Yeah.
And this is Swiggy and Zomato. These are two players who feed India. So what we'll do today, hopefully, is to talk a lot about food, different from different angles. Preferences, business models, what will future look like, how can robotics play an interesting role, and so on. So let's start by your affinity to consumers, right? So we have a lot of young people in our office. I can see their food preferences is no longer lunch and dinner. There are a lot of other things, other cuisines that they like. Because you have this big overview, can you tell us a little bit about, what are different changing preferences for young consumers in India as far as food is concerned?
Look, I think if I look at the young consumer and let's take a average 25-year-old or 22-year-old as archetype, right? Because again, Rahul, my learning is that there is no one India, right? And I think that holds for that segment also. Well, generally we can take the most buzzing topic and say, oh, young India is having boba tea, right? Bubble tea. It is having, right, for sure. But that is not that's the clickbait headline. That's not the real story, right? So what is happening is, in a lot of traditional setups where kitchens still operate, where the mom is, and largely the mom and still not that much the dad, cooking, I think the rebellion against ghee tori is real.
Okay, explain that too.
Which is, when I was growing up, and I think ghee tori is great food for the body. Today I have a lot more of it than when I was 25. But at 25, it seemed like an imposition for the mom, right? Saying, फिर से वही बना दिया है सब्जी, फिर से वही लौकी बनी है, फिर से वही घी, क्या है खाना है, हम चुपचाप खा लेते, राइट? क्योंकि पैसे भी नहीं देते, पहली बात तो, राइट? देयर वाज नॉट दैट मच ऑप्शन कि हाँ नहीं अच्छा नहीं लगा तो क्या करेंगे, ऑप्शन भूखे तो नहीं रहेंगे, कुछ खा ही लेंगे, राइट? पर अभी आई थिंक देयर सम मनी इन है, राइट? एंड देयर इज ऑलमोस्ट लाइक कि द अच्छा आपने ये बनाया है, दिस इज अ लॉट ऑफ टे टू इंडिया, मैं कुछ और खा लूंगा. वेरी इंटरेस्टिंगली, अ मैकडोनल्ड्स इन अ बैंगलोर is seen as one of the nicer, always a very fresh brand, but or let's say a large pizza brand like a Domino's or Pizza Hut. But when they opened in a Sarsopahi or a tier 4 town, that is a destination for dating, that is a destination for birthday, राइट? आप वहां जाएंगे तो आपको देखिएगा वहां लोग बैठ के डेट कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो it is, even when people are coming from, see, India is digitally equalized and financially unequal, right? Digital equalization means they know the brand. When they come to a Delhi, it's on their bucket list. Saying, I have to eat KFC, I have to eat this, I have to eat this, I have to eat that, right? So that is also the young India. There is the young India which is straight away skipped from water to matcha, right? And literally has consumed nothing in between, right? Which is very closer to, let's say, a typical kid in Manhattan or Singapore, or and that very much exists. Right? What are common traits? Very few. There's almost
Very fragmented.
very fragmented. There's almost no generalization possible. The generalization is our need for elegance in our heads, rather than existing in the market like that. So they are as diverse as anything else. One or two things which are different from other generations, far more experimental in cuisine, right? They want new cuisine, they want new type of cuisine. Actually, it's not just international cuisine, it is also a lot of regional cuisine becoming mainstream. Like you'll today Chettinad food in Delhi is available in 10 places. In Bangalore, you may find हमेशा से था, right? But in Delhi it was not there, right? And a Sadhya meal today is available in Gurgaon, which was pretty much nowhere outside South India people knew Sadhya. And the youngsters during Onam, I want to have that also, right? Equally, they want to try Peruvian food, right? There's some data to show that coffee is definitely a trend, And my hypothesis is that it's also lead because see, a lot of the businesses are offline dating businesses, right? Masquerading other business, right? Uh, so that trend also holds.
Very interesting. And does that also mean that the loyalty is going to be less and less, as in fickleness and
100%. Look at coffee, right? There are 100 brands, 100 players, literally today. Everyone is getting funded, and each one thinks they have a shot, and rightly so because the market is there, right? So loyalty is very low. And frankly, why should it be like? Why do brands deserve loyalty unless until they?
especially in food, I'm assuming, right? People inherently,
As long as you offer real value, loyalty will remain. I don't think there's a disloyal consumer out there.
sure.
There is more competition, which allows for more choices, and more choices sometimes reflect as lack of loyalty. Sometimes you are loyal to a telecom provider or somebody because you have no choice. We called it loyalty,
Yeah.
right? Throw 10 more things there out there and see how loyal the consumer is with a better service. Like today, I think that is available, so that reflects in lack of loyalty.
Interesting. And like, you know, you have at least seen 3 years of your own journey at Swiggy, but I'm sure there's a lot more history. If you look 5 years back to now, like, what has changed? One, you said variety, but like in terms of, do cities behave differently? Do tier 1 city behave differently than tier 3? You gave one example. Also price points, right? As in, are you seeing a jump in people wanting to spend more? Like, what are...
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think if they look at the AOVs of the business, they've dramatically gone up pre-COVID to now, right? Which reflects purchasing power is
and frequency also, is it?
frequency more AOV more than frequency.
Okay.
Right. But I think if you talk about delivery, right? I'll give you examples of things which have dramatically changed, and when change has completed, you don't even notice it's change. Yeah. 5 years back, you will not imagine ordering tea and coffee on delivery because you'll think it'll come cold. Today, nobody thinks. You'll order your favorite coffee, tea, around say it'll come in a flask. It is hot, you drink it. It took players to really work with us for a long time to make it mainstream and almost not noticed.
Interesting.
Right? And there's several categories. Like for example, dosas. We sell like tons of dosas. Earlier the impression was that dosa तो fresh खाते हैं और जाके खाते.
True.
Right? Not true anymore.
So convenience has taken over.
Convenience has taken over, and I think also it's not just us doing a brilliant job. Right? I think we can always. I think to be fair, the category has been preserved well by both the players, to give due credit, right? Because I think that's very important when you are building categories. It's very important to keep I'll talk about the consumer experience intact.
Sure.
That's the biggest moat you can keep in any business. But even look at what has happened to the cities, right? It's hard to get anywhere. It's not easy, true, right? And that also naturally is a tailwind to our business. Because today, the consumer who has some resources wants to go out only for two things. One, if they have to for their work, and second is for entertainment. And to me, eating out is entertainment, movies entertainment, parties entertainment, social visit to friends are entertainment. Apart from these two, why will you want to go out? For what? Right? It's not. It is not logically explainable that in Bangalore, for example, if you have to go 4 kilometers to buy something, you'll actually do it because it may cost you 1.5 hours for your time, parking, chaos. So that the challenge which urban cities faced have also reflected in some outcomes for us, which is not the best thing that we shoot for, but we are a convenience platform which is obsessed about convenience, right? So we think of all angles of convenience all the time. That's all we wake up to. See, you have a problem, how can I solve it?
What about differences between tier 1 cities like Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay? How different are they?
So very, very different from a cuisine standpoint.
Okay.
Look, biryani is the equalizer, broadly. If you take most cities, biryani is the equalizer because everywhere you'll find a fair amount of consumption. Some cities will be higher, some likely lower, but it'll be the top 3 cuisine in practically every city, right? But barring that, like if you take a Coimbatore, much more traditional still, right? If you take a Chennai, much more traditional, hard for Mexican, Japanese, and still making roads. Coming, but much lower. A Gurgaon, accelerated. Indiranagar, accelerated. Peruvian खाना किसको पता? Just imagine somebody told you like 5 years back कि let's go and have Peruvian food. You say map पे है कहाँ पहले तो देखो, right? Ethiopian food, right? So the middle room like music based venues. So that we are trending absolutely towards a situation where New York is today, right? Where people are experimenting. Supper clubs are coming up. Where frankly, interestingly, in a supper club, you might think in a posh supper club you'll be eating like Italian food or something, but you are going back and saying, I'm bringing you the lost cuisine of Himachal onto the table, right? In fact, I was at a supper club in Bombay recently. She's actually bringing Himachali food onto the supper club, right? Where you may think that now, so in a wonderful way, I think we are also preserving our tradition in a because if you think about it, the best way to sometimes our palaces have been preserved is by converting into hotels.
True. Very true.
Okay, because that will endure and stay because somebody will put money behind it. Similarly, I think for niche cuisines which are fantastic to survive, it needs to become mainstream commercial in a way which it's preserved. So everything is happening.
Interesting. The other thing that always intrigues me is, and that happens not just in food, but it has happened in commerce also, that you started a marketplace, then over time, then you have, if I can call them private labels, so like say a bold company and so on. In food specifically, the reason to do this is to fill some gaps. Is it more margin driver? As in what?
No, I think I'm very clear on going in our marketplace model food, right? I think it's closest to a pure marketplace, right? And the only reason to do it is where there's a consumer demand and supply is not available, right? And somehow you're not able to convince the partners to come in there, right? Barring that, I think there is very little to do in a Swiggy core marketplace equation to have private labels.
I understand.
It's a different business.
Yeah, that's one that you're basically preparing food, and then every state might have a different taste and so
A
on.
very different business. It can be done for a very targeted reason, but not for a generic reason of building margins.
We keep on seeing a lot of cloud QSR chain companies. One of the questions I have for them is there are only two platforms. How will you build a large company on base of just two large channel partners? If you were a founder running a QSR, let's say cloud QSR company, what would you do so that you can build a large company?
Actually, there are examples. If you look at Rebel, it's fairly large. If you look at Eat Fit, they're preparing for the IPO. Cure Foods,
Cure Food.
it's quite large. Wow is just raised a large round. So there are enough and more examples. I think in this business, the reality, the question is not about just distribution, because distribution is available and in a good way. See, the flip is that today you can imagine a large company and start it without worrying about the distribution aega kahan se.
Agree.
Let's just imagine this world didn't exist.
We will store Western.
No way to reach India. Very hard.
A lot of ice cream brands have been built.
Ice cream brands have been built like that, right? And ice cream brands also can ride on book commerce. Right? They're riding on that wave as well, right? So I think we are rather than think of saying कि margin कैसे बनेगा, you have to think first that highway बना हुआ है गाड़ी चलाने के लिए. Highway बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है आपको. And this highway is very difficult to make, right? The third, hyperlocal logistics led business is the ultimate grilling business to build.
True.
Right? That much I can confirm. I mean, business. Like I have never run a harder business from this damage. Right? It is hard. Right? Now so एक तो आप लेके चलो कि आपके पास प्लेटफॉर्म बना दिया ना किसी ने. Right? Now the question is what your job to be done? Of course, you have trade negotiations, margins. तो चलता रहेगा life में. Right? Every business has it. I don't think we are any different. The thing boils down to simple things. How is the food quality? Right? See, interestingly, there is very inexpensive food available on the platform. It doesn't sell at all. Food is not a business where it's just price led you can sell. Your rating matters. Nobody eats bad food at low price. किसी को भी आप देते बोलो कि ये बहुत सस्ता है आप खा लो और बेकार खाना है, कोई नहीं खाया, राइट? Whereas for something usable, you'll say ठीक है पहन के फेंक दूँ, कपड़ा अच्छा नहीं, टी शर्ट 2 बार पहन लूंगा, धुल के पर्पस सर्व करती है, 100 रुपए की चलेगा, राइट? I'm not, every segment is different, but I can imagine that happening for some reason, right? Here I can't imagine, doesn't happen, right? So food quality, what is the positioning, right? And then I think cloud kitchens are, which is not what we are best at, but I'm just quoting to you on what I have seen the best at, is ultimately a EBITDA per square feet business, right? And that EBITDA per square feet is a massive. Also, because of Swiggy, you don't need to be in high street.
Sure.
I think those are advantages. You don't need to put up 40 restaurants to apply the city. So if you compare full capex load to full capex load, I think this, I can argue, can be built into a more better profitable engine, than if you had to build a, let's say, pure offline network of your true.
And I think
Because you compare OPEX to OPEX, in, of course, you're forgetting the capex that you had to put. Like if you go on the main street of Indranagar, it's a very different rental than if you're able to be inside somewhere.
Yeah, and similar to e-commerce, at least to your point on highway, one other suggestion I have is that over time you have to be omni-channel anyways. As in, customer, when they're wanting to eat from that brand, if they want to go out and eat, then you should be available.
And most brands progress in that direction, it shows, and that's a fair play. Right?
True. I think
but the self-delivery hasn't worked. Except in our brands. As in brands delivering on their own.
That's a costly.
Costly, plus we have seen, in fact, we launched a product called self-delivery. Okay. The way you can plug in and actually use our, as for demands, नहीं चला पाते हैं. मतलब, not because it's we are any special, but because we're so focused on that.
Yeah.
Right? I have a 100-member team on engineers or something just doing that.
I understand.
It's damn complex. बारिश धूप ये वो सुबह 700 शहरों में चलाने में थोड़ा, आई थिंक इट्स अ बिजनेस बाइट था.
Understood. Obviously, living in Bangalore and any large city, the buzz of quick commerce is there.
Yeah.
The whole concept of 10-minute delivery, right?
Right.
Are you finding your consumers also asking for that 10-minute delivery? Sometimes they might have to compromise on freshness. I don't know if it is true or not, but how are...
You mean on food?
Yeah, 10-minute food delivery or a 15-minute food delivery. Is this something that consumers are...
We are bold. There's service, right? And I think, look, I think, was it Bezos or somebody who was asked the question saying, what have you learned in years of building Amazon? He said only two things. Customers want things cheaper and faster. I think it was Bezos, if I'm not wrong. So that is true, right? People want, because see, when you will wait for, there's a value add to waiting. And there are need states where you just, if you had it like magic, like you want like coffee. You won't plan for coffee 2 hours ahead or 1 hour ahead.
Yeah.
You feel like having coffee, right? You faster is coming, it's hot, it's fine. Now the thing to understand is that a quick delivery doesn't happen at the cost of freshness. Look, we have basic intelligence to business का है. Then you तो अब समझ में आ गया कि you can't do that. So it operates on 2 or 3 very simple principles. One is, there is a bunch of SKUs which are ready. Like you go to a mithai shop, you want a samosa. Not cooking the samosa and give it to you.
Yeah.
काउंटर पे रखा होता है, आपको निकाल के दे देता है वो, right? ऐसे बहुत सारे SKU. You go to a burger store, they will give you a burger in 2 minutes, right? So one is that there is a set of SKUs. But will I do fine dining on 10 minutes? No, right? There's a set of SKUs which are practically ready, and nothing changes whether the reason it gets 11:40 minutes not because it's being freshly made or the other way around, but simply because of how you configure the network. So on this network, we'll not deliver, let's say, more than 2 kilometers.
The time to travel, आपने कम कर दी.
कम कर दिया.
What about the first mile of the driver going to the restaurant?
वो liquidity
That time is also
liquidity यहाँ रखते हैं. We do it in zones where the liquidity is high. Liquidity. So I'm not changing fundamentally the way it is cooked. वहाँ पे भी देखिए, ऐसा नहीं है कि inefficiency नहीं होती है. काउंटर पे आ गए हैं, वेट कर रहा है. The guy is not paying attention. Of course, we build it. That's our job. To saying, why should a food wait at the counter? So technically, actually, it is fresher. Because it's not waiting anywhere in a supply chain at all. If it's a hot coffee gets you 10 minutes, I can argue it's actually better than a coffee which comes in 30 minutes. Right? By nature of the beast.
And will the cost of that final offer be higher or the consumer?
Right, not say.
But like inherently the cost in the system, in some sense, is it higher?
For us to deliver,
Yeah,
no,
overall.
it's shorter miles actually.
Okay.
So not
But you utilize the driver as much in that short mile, right?
that because it is part of the overall. If it was only building for that, then it's a different equation. But because if I have liquidity anyway in that zone, it becomes a different equation.
So, and you have both Bolt and Snacc, right?
Correct.
Like
Snacc is a look, I think pre-PMF business for us, right?
okay.
And the entire category is pre-PMF, right? Where you're trying to say that is there a very curated set of almost like a new cuisine canteen kind of approach which can work. Early days, I think Bolt is already scaled up, right? Bolt is almost double-digit order contribution for us across 500 cities.
Wow. 500 cities are there in Bolt.
Yeah.
And like again, we see a lot of companies which are saying that they'll do a full stack and food delivery business. Compared to you, which is Bolt is more like a marketplace, right? You're not building your kitchens. You're saying I'll pick up from kitchen.
Correct. Bolt is a marketplace.
Like, what do you see future look like? Will both the players exist, or
both will exist? Right. The second business, which is similar to Snacc, let's say, I think is pre-PMF for everyone.
There, do you think there is a equivalent of? And one challenge I have with the full stack model has been that people get bored of certain kind of food. So what these players do, then they have variety. But then question is that, is it more a snacking business? Is that the need you're fulfilling, or is it an empire restaurant or a Haldiram that you're building online, which is value pricing? A lot of cuisines, no specialization, but good enough food for you to eat multiple times in a week.
As it's pre-PMF, I can't give you the answer.
But that will your
my sense is it won't be the same thing served in a cheaper price point, which will find PMF. It'll have to be different things and cuisine which somebody loves delivered fast.
Got it. And people are building a full stack model. What challenges do you foresee they have to solve for to build a large company? The 10-unit full stack model.
AOV.
You're saying the AOV might be lower?
Because every delivery business requires certain AOV or a very high frequency in a very hyper concentrated zone. That equation people have to solve. It's not an obvious business, I'm telling you.
Understood. You're saying it's not that the food preference have to be is like that is you're saying is solvable. This is the more difficult problem.
The food be important, but I think it's everything has to stack up, and it's a very sort of tight business because you have to give innovation also. You have to bring the last mile down also. You have to have very high demand in a concentrated zone also, because you can't be serving like 6 kilometers. By definition, fails.
Interesting. And let's move to competition. And no, I'm not talking about a specific company, but curious that you had Flipkart and Amazon and Meesho got created. You have Swiggy and Zomato, and now your third player of Rapido, which has entered the market. Do you think there is a segmentation possible? Is there a different need gap to be addressed for a third player to be there?
No. This market always had 13 players.
Yeah, that's so.
5 years back, it had 3 players.
Uber and all those.
Actually, 2 years back, Amazon was trying in Bangalore. They launched it for 3 years. They ran the food delivery there. ONDC came last year. There's a bunch of players who were delivering on ONDC. So frankly, I don't understand why people believe that there have not been competitive attempts in the market. That will continue, right? So space to हमेशा होता है, right? Now it's our job to whether to let somebody do it or no. But look, we are also a product of competition. Like we're born in competition in every category. So beyond the point, I think we just focus on what we have to focus on and not really who's doing what.
And if you are a third party person standing from outside or looking at it from outside, what do you think the main reason why, other than these two companies, nobody is being able to scale? Is it the network effect of the part of the model? Is it more capital being available? Is it execution? Isn't what?
Because very, very solid execution. देखने को तो बिजनेस बहुत सिंपल सा है कि रेस्टोरेंट में खाना बनता है, वहाँ से उठा के दूसरे को दे देते हो. And we can make this business sound very sexy, but that's exactly what we do day in and day out, like maybe a few crores times a month or a year or whatever. But it's a very hard business to build, right? From an execution standpoint, everything has to line up, right? And the consumer experience has to be preserved all the time, right? So doing it a few times is easy. Doing it 100 crore times a year with the same level of accuracy is where the game is.
Got it. And you talked about ONDC, very curious, as in very interesting concept. Doesn't seem to be taken off the way.
In some categories, it has for sure. I think looks like from what I look, I have not been deeply involved, but looks like the mobility side it had some traction. Some other verticals had some traction. I think food पे अभी भी चल रहा है काम.
And what is there? Are there one or two things you think needs to be figured out?
Consumer experience.
This is the delivery and the supply side.
See, as a consumer, beyond the point you ordered, you need assurance ki where is the food, who's it going, what.
Got it.
I wish that whole thing has to come together
Got it.
with high degree of accuracy. Any model which does that and makes money should be okay.
Got it. And clearly, you run as a
See,
company.
the Uncle will very punishing if you go wrong on experience, right? There is no. Once you deliver the experience, they want it cheaper, but they won't take a cheap experience.
I like to write down all these codes.
Okay, I think that's very, very important.
Interesting.
And it's if you build in India, you can build practically anywhere. These price points, you can build something profitable. I think it's a different muscle. People who work with $55 AOVs don't understand $5 AOV business as a market.
In Swiggy runs both food and grocery.
Instamart is not grocery.
Instamart, sorry, not grocery anymore. Where are the synergies and where the divergence?
Both very different businesses, right? Synergies are on consumer base for sure, right? Synergies are in learning from on performance marketing, on cross pollination, on logistics, a lot of things which are common, right? So there are a bunch of synergies, but fundamentally both very different businesses. We also treat it very differently. Right? We don't try and blame too much.
Okay. And this includes delivery and all also they kept separate. I always used to think generally synergy.
Delivery is almost 95% separate for Instamart.
And again, you don't have to share data, but curious, like, is the customer base common? Are the large, let's say, spend amounts and all, are they common?
Large parts are common, but large parts are independent as well. So that's why we launched the Instamart standalone app also. Yeah, because there's a bunch of consumers, especially new markets and cities, where they're not high on food delivery, but they're very eager to try out commerce on grocery or vegetable. Okay. So that's why the standalone app exists.
I always used to think consumers first hopefully try food.
No, not
grocery खरीदना तो already.
not less.
Interesting.
Food developed first, so quick commerce came later, so it looks that way, logically. But from consumer standpoint, no.
Interesting. And as you look at future, right, next 5 years in India, and let's say,
For me, future is normally two quarters and 1 year. 5 year is a thought.
चलिए आपसे थॉट ही पूछेंगे कि अगले 5 साल में इंडिया के फूड मार्केट में what do you see could be possible? All will not happen. So this is not a definitive judgment one is asking for, but what are the different possibilities? कहाँ जा सकता है?
As in growth rate?
Anything, consumer trends, growth rate, new business models. What will people move out of? What will people move into?
See, out of तो कुछ नहीं होगा. Somebody will win. There's nothing to move out of food. Somebody likes their kind of food, कोई तो बनाएगा, कोई जीतेगा. Right? इसमें out of ऐसा कुछ नहीं चलेगा.
I give you example. One of my colleagues, Ritesh, उसका बहुत strong way है कि over time people will stop cooking at home. Right? So any wild guesses on what do you think might change?
Yeah, हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छा है. But no, I don't think I agree. 5 year time frame में ऐसा होने वाला है. I tell this, my mom is 83. ठीक है. She lives in Calcutta. Now I'll come to the point. I'm answering your question. I'm not in a different track. And when I go there, she still wants to make aloo paratha herself or make my food. And she says ki, that's her joy. So providing for the family has been her joy and in her mind, her role. Right? My daughter's 13. She goes to the kitchen and she goes to a museum. अच्छा ये क्या है, एयर फ्रायर अच्छा इसमें क्या बनता है, and we can relate to those kids. I think both exist in India. And truly, I think India lies somewhere between the two spectrums, right? But the real change happening is not in terms of food and habits. It's happening in only two things, Rahul. which will drive us, and the acceleration of those trends will mean or not mean something for us.
Okay.
One is how are kitchens of India changing?
Okay.
I'll give you a simple example. आप कोई भी हाई क्विक कॉमर्स यूजेज हाउसहोल्ड में फ्रिज जाके देखना, फ्रिज में कुछ नहीं है.
अच्छा. Very interesting.
Large fridges will become an act of vanity and not used. तो किसी को लार्ज फ्रिज सेगमेंट में खेलना है तो बहुत सुंदर फ्रिज बनाना चाहिए, कि विच इज ऑलमोस्ट लाइक अ डेकोरेशन आइटम. लोगों ने बोला यार मस्त फ्रिज है, कोई जरूरत नहीं है उसकी, बिकॉज वट एवर स्टैक्ड इनसाइड इज नाउ कमिंग इन 10 minutes. It's like the ATM when you used to go to bank to withdraw cash, because you have to go there, you'll do for the full month. The moment ATMs came, you started doing 10 times a month. We didn't notice the behavior that happened. The one teller transaction converted to 10 ATM transactions almost. Right? Because you say 2000 रुपए निकाल लिया, फिर निकाल लिया. ATM तो हर जगह है. Same thing is happening with quick commerce, right? So one is how the kitchens are changing fundamentally. Second is what is the role of women and how it's changing fundamentally. And I think the role of women about the household, and look, men can pretend to say we run the kitchen and very small. They run restaurant chefs में higher percentage है, home में बहुत कम है. So it's largely the women. And it is converting from an obligation to a choice. And that is a question of one, cultural nuances, and second is economic freedom. Right? ये व्हील जितनी ज़्यादा घूम रही है उतनी उस स्पेस पे आपका स्टेटमेंट ट्रू या फॉल्स है. And I'll tell you, in Bangalore, there are households where that has already happened. So that, to your colleague's point, does that exist? It already exists in India. Where the Sunday cooking, kitchen is operational on Sunday for one meal, and it's the meal made for Instagram. Seeing वो पास्ता भी उबला हुआ आया, वो सब्जी भी कटी हुई आई, वो सॉस भी बनी हुई आई, उसको मिक्स करके इंस्टाग्राम पे व्हाट अ वंडरफुल टाइम वी हैड कुकिंग मील नेट. एंड उसके बाद वो दैट्स इट, दैट्स द यूज ऑफ द किचन, राइट? वो ये हो रहा है आज, especially in what I call the double income one dog families, right? Because economic freedom is there, the dog is there to take care of. It's a different world, right? Equally, if you go to Jhansi, the ghee tori revolution is happening, so the mom is getting irritated, right? But also subtly the change is happening, saying आज मेहमान आ रहे हैं तो कुछ घर पे बना लेते हैं, कुछ बाहर से मंगा लेते हैं. Because we don't want to appear sort of saying अच्छा पूरा बाहर से खाना मंगाया आपने. India is very deep rooted in these things, saying कि अच्छा आपने घर में खाना बनाया भी नहीं हमारे लिए, कुछ मेहनत नहीं की, तो मतलब आप फिर अच्छे होस्ट नहीं हो, राइट? तो वो सटल ब्रेक हो रहा है कि नहीं, थोड़ा घर पे बनाया है, ये थोड़ा बाहर से मंगाया है, राइट? बिकॉज द act of lightening the burden is there. The woman there also wants to know. I don't think fundamentally women want it as an obligation. If they have a choice to cook like it, same as men, we also ultimately want to do what we want to do, right? So there's no difference. वो wheel जितना जल्दी change हुआ है, that's wheel a function of culture, and the culture is changing very fast, right? बेस्ट डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन करवा चौथ, तो इस पे आपको इंडिया में पूरा डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन दिख जाता है कि कल्चर कहाँ कितना चेंज हो रहा है. इंटरेस्टिंग. तो रात को चांद निकलने के बाद पूरा रोका हम भी उसको देखते हैं, चांद कब निकलता है. एक्चुअली आधे घंटे बाद स्पाइक होता है ऑर्डर, क्योंकि उस समय बोला यार तुम थक गई होगी, आज खाना छोड़ो, कहीं बाहर चलते हैं या घर पे बना लेते हैं, राइट? अगर सास सामने बैठी है तो थोड़ा धीरे शब्दों में बोलता है वो, अगर नहीं बैठी तो जोर से बोलता है, क्योंकि वो फॉरेन मॉम इन लॉ से कि अरे मेरे टाइम तो ऐसा नहीं था, मेरे को कभी किसी ने बोला. सो दिस आर वेरी इंडियन थिंग्स एंड आई हैव नो जजमेंट ऑन दीस थिंग्स, दीज आर ओनली ऑब्जर्वेशंस, राइट? तो whether 5 years later kitchens will cease to exist, I think I'm not in that camp, right? Because again, India is as much Jhansi and Meerut and Thrissur and as much as Bangalore. Bangalore में इंद्रनगर बैठ के फील हो सकता है. So both will exist. Is that pace? These are wheels of change are in motion, right? How fast it goes is a function of how affordable we make it, because we have a job cut out there. I don't think we can pretend to say कि India has infinite purses to spend on everything. India is a very value market. So अगर हम उसको affordability खोल पाए तो ज़्यादा फास्ट जाएगा, अगर नहीं खोल पाए तो जाएगा तो बहुत स्लो जाएगा.
And interesting, and then there is a trend of automation, right? That let's say if you could create and there are a few companies we've seen which is, either a home cooking robot which will allow you to just put stuff and then it will you can put a setting, and then today with you can, if you're internet user, you can even download recipes that will cook
देखो,
some food for
you need my view on that. I think it's a top 30 zone play in India. It's an act of curiosity, not of automation.
You don't see that being adopted or not.
Look, I'm famously wrong on many things, right? I'm almost all I have a huge track record of being wrong on these things, and because I don't, it's not I'm an operator, largely,
Yeah.
I'm not a soothsayer. But मेरे को लगता है वो अगर किचन में खाना बंद हुआ ना, तो instead of machine we will win. We will deliver from somewhere.
And now automation on the cloud kitchen side, right?
रोटी मोटर बहुत टाइम से है, आपको याद होगा.
You're right.
पर वो एक तो एक्सपेंसिव था.
हाँ, यूएस में ज़्यादा चलता है, इंडिया में तो
एक्सपेंसिव बहुत है.
और नहीं.
नहीं को लेबर कॉस्ट पे तो मतलब unless until this machine is available at a few thousand rupees, मुश्किल लगता है मेरे को मास पेनिट्रेशन.
और क्लाउड किचन साइड सोचे तो
बट ऑटोमेशन है ना, मिक्सी अपनी नहीं ऑटोमेशन अपनी
क्लाउड किचन में अगर वी सी देम गेटिंग ऑटोमेटेड की
आई थिंक
शेफ की जरूरत कम पड़ जाए एंड ऑल.
वहाँ पे होगा कि नीड ऑफ स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन वेरी हाई. The more standardized you can make things, right? It won't come from a labor arbitrage issue. The issue is of quality. And when you scale, labor arbitrage आप कभी नहीं जीत पाओगे इंडिया में बहुत टाइम तक, राइट? जहाँ पे वो लेबर आर्बिट्राज का क्वेश्चन आएगा वहाँ पे लेबर कॉस्ट विल विन. I can almost prove it to you by math. But the quality argument is definitely there in areas where it is very important to standardize things. Right? So if you're a QSR player who wants a perfect item to go out exactly like that 100% of the time, only a machine can do that. Or you need like years of learning. हाँ मतलब कुछ ब्रांड से वो 50 साल में सीखा है कि क्योंकि उनके पास सब की स्टडी है कि ये ऐसा हुआ था, ये आलू में एक बार ऐसा हुआ था, तो ग्लोबली ऐसा वहाँ पे ये हुआ था. Starbucks is like that. I think if you look at the Starbucks store experience, right?
Very
consistent globally, right? It doesn't change. The barista almost feels the same whether you're Argentina or US or UK or India, right? But बहुत कम brands हैं उसे जो कि उस level of consistency को human being से कर पाएं, right? There I think there is an opportunity if somebody does the really standardized and quality play. Of course, again, it need to be make sense on the economics. It can be a small premium on labor cost. It cannot be a large because then the market will not accept, right? From a pricing standpoint.
One other connotation of qualities is the food is in terms of health, right? Are you seeing the change the consumer asking कि मुझे healthier खाना चाहिए?
Yeah. So look, I think so. One, I'll tell you a light anecdote, and I'll tell you the real answer. So I think the spikes on 2nd January.
अच्छा, after New Year.
फर्स्ट तक हैंगओवर रहता है लोगों को तो नहीं होता. सेकंड से पूरा स्पाइक करता है और करीब 20-21 तारीख को ग्राफ नहीं चलने लगता है, राइट? सब वो कस्मे वादे सब थोड़ा डाउन हो जाते हैं. तब तक 2 हफ्ते चलता है वो बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग. It's like gym membership go up. The January effect happens, like resolution effect. But on a more serious note, I think there are 2 or 3 trends which are very clear. One is protein, right? Which is absolutely, I think it's a social media phenomena where a very important health need, frankly, and sometimes this is the goodness of social media also, has been brought to national attention, right? Which is great. वो दिखता है, शुगर फ्री दिखता है मेरे को, राइट? ये 2 मेजर ट्रेंड मेरे को दिखता है. बाकी आई थिंक वी आर there is a small cohort of consumers who are very very
health conscious.
health conscious तो सब हैं, बट हम तो छोले भटूरे को भी हेल्दी समझते हैं ना. तो आप ऐसा क्यों सोच रहे हैं कि भटूरा is good for the soul and the connection from the soul to the stomach and all is unproven. आप अगर ज़्यादा खुश हो तो ज़्यादा जी सकते हैं ना. क्या खा के खुश होते हैं?
And maybe the last question to you, beyond food, again, if you have to predict, what will change in Indian consumers' life, let's say a few years out, what are the trends you're seeing that you feel काफी कुछ change हो जाएगा?
I think convenience will be taken care of. And I think our unique advantage of demographic dividend, labor costs, etc., will mean that people will have more time on their hands. See, one thing is with AI coming in, I think we are looking at a situation where people will be time rich, right? That is, in my mind, the only certainty on the consumer side. And the time rich will have to be filled with something. The basic, because also the generation which is in alpha is growing up practically believing that nothing which is not fun is to be done.
Actually, that's true.
Right. कि वो कपड़े धोना, तो जो चीज़ हमको वर्च्यूज़ में सिखाया जाता था कि एक अच्छा इंसान बनने के लिए आपको सब कुछ आना चाहिए, कि जूते पॉलिश करो खुद के, कपड़े धो, ये करो, वो करो, घर सफाई करो, बर्तन मांजो, जो भी करना है आपको, सबको बोला ये अच्छा बच्चा है, तो ये करता है। तो आज के दिन में अच्छा बच्चा का डेफिनेशन नहीं है, राइट? बिकॉज़ the there was no urban company, there was no Swiggy, there was no uh, Uber or some at that
Instamart,
right? There was no Instamart, right? Instamart is almost for many people a personal genie. लेकिन अभी सोचा अभी आ गया. I'll give an example like no spin में ही लड़की गिर गई थी. अब वो girls panic कि छेद बंद हो जाएगा, right? Some kind of thing is there, right? And it comes in 10 minutes, right? So they have grown up in a world where they ask me, my daughter asked me for geometry box at 10 बजे रात को, कल सुबह चाहिए. एंड अर्लियर तो हम बोलेंगे दुकान बंद हो गई, अभी तुमको याद आया है, स्कूल कल है, पहले क्यों नहीं बोल सकते थे? अभी उसके हाथ में 10 मिनट में आ जाता है. सो दे विल एक्चुअली हैव फार मोर टाइम ऑन द हैंड, राइट? Fundamentally, and that will create a set of interesting opportunities on how to keep them productively occupied.
New experiences for them or something.
Yeah, I think it's non-linear, hence we are unable to see it. But this generation, which is the 14 of today, when they become 21, will grow up knowing. I'm talking very urban metro. I'm also generalizing right now because, frankly, none of this is true in many places where still there's a lot of basic needs still not available. But largely, I think metro urban, आप पूछो मेरे से तो ये तो पक्का है.
Though I said last question, I still have one more question. I always do that. If you've seen corporate journeys, you've seen startup journeys, if you were to give one or two advice to, let's say, a startup founder that comes to you.
Yeah, I think first of all, look, I've never been a founder myself that way, but I've operated with a founder mindset, hopefully.
Yeah.
Advice देना तो मुश्किल है, but दो तीन चीज़ें मैं अच्छे founders में देखी है, मैं around seeing what I've seen from the best founders I've worked with, etc. One is that ability to see things others can't see, right? That is very good. Right?
Unique insights.
Unique insight, not from data, but also observation. Belief saying कि वो दुनिया से change हो रही है, and the rate of change they can notice better. See, we see change at the current pace. I think the rate of change and the exponentiality of it is where what matters, right? I think that's one very strong skill founders have, right? And they go wrong often, but they are able to see that a lot more. I think second is I think this whole notion of saying you have to be profitable on day one is a disservice to building large companies, right? And this is a notion where I want to contest, where Amazon wouldn't create it.
Yeah.
Right. This is a popular narrative right now. I do think get your first 100 customers to just love you. That is I will not even, when I meet founder, I invest a lot, right? I just tell me how are you going to excite your first 100 customers? Why are they going to love you? मेरे को और कुछ समझना ही नहीं आपसे. एक आपकी जर्नी समझनी है कि आपने ठोकरें खाई है कि नहीं खाई हैं, राइट? अगर आपने खाई हैं तो अच्छी बात है, वो उसकी कहानी बताओ कि बाउंस कैसे किया था, राइट? एंड फर्स्ट द ट्रबल यू हैव बीन इन, आई एम मोर इंटरेस्टेड, राइट? सेकंड इज कि जो भी आप करना चाह रहे हो, आपका B2B है, B2C है, जो भी है, आप बताओ कि मैं अगर पहला 100 कस्टमर आपका, तो व्हाई शुड आई लव यू?
Interesting.
If you tell me that, if you figure that out, most smart operators will ultimately figure out economics. Right? And some companies do a job of market expansion that costs money. Last point I want to address is, and this is something I always use platforms, is saying people have still not figured out how to look at OPEX heavy build-outs and CAPEX heavy build-outs. OPEX heavy build-outs are punished more for being loss-making versus CAPEX heavy build-outs. CAPEX तो हमने लगा दी, एक फैक्ट्री लगाई, उसमें मान लो 10,000 करोड़ लगा दी, वो खर्चा है ना?
हाँ, खर्चा तो है,
पर उसका EBITDA प्रॉफिटेबल हो सकता है 20 साल में. ट्रू, क्योंकि उसका अब अल्टीमेटली अ मोर मैच्योर्ड पर्सन विल सी अ फ्री कैश फ्लो और a ROCE is the ultimate metric. Right? Platform businesses, if you create, and once they start producing cash, have very high ROCEs because with no incremental capex going on, right? But to get to that point, like tech cost is expense to the P&L for us,
Yeah.
right? And most companies in our genre. I think having the ability to understand this, right? Even as an entrepreneur, and not be too phased by initial criticism you will face from LinkedIn posts saying, "Yo, you like, do you know how to making money at small scale is not difficult,
That's true.
right? But that doesn't create large scale companies. There's always honorable exceptions.
Yeah.
I think those are still honorable exceptions and not the rule.
I think it's also a question of what business are you in, right? As in, if you're in let's say, building a consumer brand, then maybe you need to be profitable early, maybe not on first day or first year.
But which level of profitability? Like, for example, if I'm if I'm building really good margins, right, and I have a velocity going, should I not go strong on marketing and become bigger and bigger, right? So I just do think that founders need to have very sense of equanimity and good advice on this front, because they will be led into first of all, I think have your investors like them, but don't be led by them, right? I think it's very dangerous. So that on an investor podcast, I think that's the last message.
Well,
Yeah.
this was nice, Rohit. Like, I wish we had more time, but this was so nice. I think I learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers would also learn a lot from your quotes and also your insights. Thank you for having.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you for having me. Absolutely. Pleasure.